Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, August 5th. The new expansion for Saviors of Uldum is coming out tomorrow, and we put out earlier today, or I live streamed on Saturday, looking at all the new cards. So I've seen all the new cards. It seems like the new expansion is mostly going to give you 2 great cards, probably for each hero class, and then a handful of good cards otherwise, and then a lot of just kind of generic replacement cards for cards that already exist that have gone in the wild. But because that expansion has happened, or is happening tomorrow, I've disabled the comment blocker, the chat rules. I think Hearthstone Deck Tracker will still show up. So we're going to just look a little bit different today in these recordings. The weekend happened. A couple more violent tragedies happened, and unquestionably everybody who is in the pocket of the NRA immediately blamed video games, as they have been doing for 20 years, despite survey after survey after survey saying there's at best 5 minutes worth of increased aggression when playing an aggressive violent video game after you play the game. It's not any realistic long-term effect has ever been found, and most surveys and most experiments don't even find that much. So yeah, it's just garbage. The tragic events are garbage and shouldn't happen for many different reasons, but blaming it on video games in particular, which is the focus of this YouTube channel, is also garbage. Is there anything else to really say with that? No. I mean, you might as well just ignore it and not respond to it at this point. But since the weekend happened, we have 3 daily quests to do. This is 2 things not being related at all. So we need to play cards that cost 6 or more. We need to play Druid or Hunter. Let's play Hunter. And we need to win 2 victories together. Tavern Brawl. I believe we also need to do the Asian account Tavern Brawl. What's funny is the new expansion is going to come out, and I do not have enough gold to purchase 50 packs. I will be able to open 50 packs because they gave away a bunch of free packs, and I've been holding on to them for the last few weeks. But I've been doing the daily quests, so you can kind of tell that the expansion is coming out earlier, and they have not been giving us gold to spend. And no point between the last expansion and this expansion did I spend 1,000 gold extra on packs. Maybe I spent 1,000 gold on the solo expansion extra. Almost certainly I did, and now we're feeling the cost of that, but it inherently says that Hearthstone is getting greedier, and it's putting out more expansions than I would be happy with. I don't know if I can really make the argument, though, that Hearthstone would be better off if they just took a break. If they took a 3 or 4 month break and said, you know what, we're not going to put out anything new, we're just going to really think about what our next expansion is going to be, and we're going to shore up things. We're going to fix some mistakes. We're going to bring back a lot of the cards from Wild, which is what I would like to see. We're going to have a new introductory experience for new players. I don't know if that would really do anything more. 5 years into Hearthstone, it's time to either announce a Hearthstone 2 or a full relaunch Hearthstone situation where I don't know if you just we're getting to the point where it's like
What is my purpose?
I could imagine some people wanting to play classic servers on Hearthstone. Just bring me back to the good old days, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I don't know how you fix that or actually accomplish something like that other than people running pirate servers. Yeah, and it would feel very awkward if all of a sudden they said, actually Hearthstone has just been this long-running beta test for Hearthstone 2, and now we're gonna do something new.
So many possibilities.
But you could do something like a cataclysm. That sounds like a word that would be used in Hearthstone. Something that changes the effects, changes the heroes, changes the hero abilities, changes weapons, changes all the characters. Makes everything feel way more
I comply.
more upgraded and updated compared to what we have. We don't really have a ton of news. I also this extended vacation is just going to be extended more. I spent most of the week literally just sleeping. This is the down end of being an insomniac, is that on some rare occasions you will just start sleeping, and it's very poor quality sleeping, but you'll sleep all day. Yeah. And that's a symbol of depression as much as it is insomnia, but yeah, I've not been in any kind of productive mood over the weekend. I also need to work on my maybe I should have stretched that out, but hey, we're playing ranked, we might as well work our way up ladder. I'm still need to work on my server. What I really need is I'm installing Linux Mint Debian Edition version 3, which the Linux Mint Debian editions don't upgrade except for every 3 or 4 years, it feels like. So it was version 2, and I'm just doing like a fresh install. Now, doing a fresh install, there's things that I kind of need a custom build for that are not built in or are configured at the fresh install. For instance, I don't have Peer Blocker installed. It's a little bit easier to install that than it used to be. You used to have to build it from source, and now it's just install a package repository, which just means putting the software installer, pointing it to a website to download the installer. So Peer Guardian blocks bad hosts, people that would try to connect to your computer, either for advertising or for hacking or some other reason. It acts kind of as a firewall on top of the UFW firewall that is built into Linux Mint Debian Edition. So that firewall I don't think I kind of need because I'm doing on top of that. Fail to ban is not installed, so for a server, fail to ban means it has several scripts pre-installed and configured, and one hopes that's all you need. You don't have to go in there and configure any new rules. But these rules work by saying, oh, I've seen this person, this specific IP address has tried 50 times to log into your server, and they've failed the password 50 times. Let's not allow that IP address to connect to us anymore. It's a brute force deterrent, and you would think you don't really need that, but you really do, because as soon as you install anything that connects to the internet, there's just things that are scanning the entirety of the internet, trying
What is my
to
purpose?
brute force into areas. So that should be installed and pre-configured first. SSH, so that you can connect remotely to a server. I personally need it configured. I need X11 VNC configured to run through SSH, or VNC in general just to run through SSH. That way you can have a secure way to remotely connect to the server. The reason why the VNC software needs to go through SSH is because that software is so incredibly old that it does not support long secure passwords. It only supports like 8 characters, maybe 12 characters, and so you can easily brute force into a VNC server by itself. So you have to, and it's not really encrypted traffic, so you kind of have to install this almost like a VPN. It's almost exactly like a VPN software called SSH, secure shell hosting, I believe is what SSH is. VNC is virtual network connections, I believe. At this point, I've forgotten what the acronyms, what the letters mean.
Let the hunt begin.
But I need that configured by default. I need Apache configured. I need OpenSSL configured so that you can have an HTTPS server ready to go. I need ZFS file support for RAID arrays configured, and it's not. I'm going to hold on to the 6 because we're supposed to be playing things that cost 6. And then there's some packages that I'm going to be installing on top of Apache. Nextcloud, which is apparently the continuation of OwnCloud, which is basically running Dropbox off your own server, so nobody else can get access to your files. Of course, at the expense of your own bandwidth and your own hard drive space. Last time I installed anything, it was OwnCloud, and so it seems like OwnCloud, in the meantime of the last time I've worked on the server, has been at least in part abandoned in favor of Nextcloud. Depending on what the features are that are missing in Nextcloud, kind of changes what the other server software I need to run is, because there is a Calibre server, a script that will allow ebooks to be connected, which I imagine Nextcloud still doesn't really have anything to do that internally. And then there is a music sharing server thing called Apache, not to be confused with Apache. It's AMP, where Apache is AP. Again, if that's built into Nextcloud, more's the better. Having to run 3 or 4 or 5 different servers is not that good. And then I want to install MineOS, so in theory there's a Minecraft server running around in case I ever wanted to play Minecraft without purchasing a server through some hosting site, which would probably be better off spending the money to have somebody else host a server, particularly if it's a modded server. MineOS just is an easy way to configure and maintain and back up Minecraft servers. So those are the main focuses. There's probably some other software, like when you install Linux Mint Debian Edition, it doesn't seem like you have Chromium or Chrome as a way to install it. So if you want the Google features, you install Chrome. If you want If you don't want the Google features, you install Chromium, which is the open source version of Chrome. But you start off with just Firefox, which is not really where I'd want to be with it. Let's see. There's some other configurations that the installer doesn't step you through or anything like that. It could be a little bit easier. It does allow you to set up automatic login when you install it. It doesn't allow you to set it up so that you don't have to type in a password every 5 seconds when you're trying to install anything, which literally on the server, the only time you're touching the computer, you're doing something that you would have to run as an administrator, run as root to do. So every single action is just type in the password over and over again. And frankly, if somebody has physical access to your computer, then you have no security ever, regardless of the operating system. So it gets really silly and ridiculous to try and make this argument that there's a major benefit to having that. Now, I guess if somebody hacks into your computer and connects remotely, they also don't need the root commands, but that's a risk I'm kind of willing to take for the frustration of it that you remove. So I like that option, even though I'm sure it's not very secure. They don't walk you through some basic things like just how to set up a printer, set up the Rydo software is the name of it now, that does mini DLNA music, video, and photo sharing or file sharing or anything like that. So there's a lot more they could put on their welcome software. Although, you know, complaining about it is actually not that useful either, because there is a lot that they have added. They've added a new shadow backup software that will make snapshots of your... Actually, I don't think it uses shadow copy, but it makes snapshots using a software called rsync of your operating system. So theoretically, you would be able to recover if you make horrible mistakes. Theoretically, didn't work for me in my one instance in attempting for it to work, which adds a level of stability, certainly. Linux in a lot of ways, though, is still very much not as polished as I would like it to be. And that is something you could say about the Android cell phone operating system, that even though it's built on Linux, they really have not done anything to push any of the Linux code into a more featured, polished product. By the way, here's the Saviors of Oldham new side game, if anybody really cares. Like, every time we get one of these, every toenail here is a key. So maybe there's something you can play here, but I would never know what it is.
Reporting for duty.
Yeah, it would have been nice at some point to have seen an inclusion of support and interest in the Linux software base, and that's not really what happened. Is Android apps are designed to only, and really can only, run on Android, so they're not software that in any way affects the experience for Linux users. And a lot of Android apps over the life of Android were designed, were made really nice, and then were abandoned, or were designed and made really nice and then got changed when somebody else became in charge of that app. And more, what you need in Android is built directly into Android, and that's kind of it. You need fewer and fewer apps. So you can tell by this side part here that there's a lot of ancient Egyptian theming going on around this. Let's see.
I don't have enough mana.
Let's go!
I suppose because of all of that Linux talk, which is, I'm sure, extremely boring to people that don't care about computers or Linux, which frankly I should be in that group. What I'm thinking, and I'm trying to figure out, is like a new schedule. Inherently, for a year, I've said, after every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday stream, that I want to get some other recording done. Very rarely, very, very rarely have I actually done any work after a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday stream, regardless of how short it is, regardless of how long it is. There have been maybe a few cases where I've streamed and then fell asleep and then woken up 4 to 6 to 8 hours later and recorded technically on the same day, but really not in the same day as far as my sleep cycle is concerned. So I need to probably, this is another instance of just honesty, being honest to oneself and saying, actually, I need to just recognize and realize that on these days, it's just about streaming. It's only going to be about streaming. It's never going to be anything else but streaming. So, after doing a 3-hour stream, which typically is what a Hearthstone stream is, I probably should schedule those days to be days in which I do something else after that point. And while I'm working on the server, I think those are the days in which I'm specifically going to focus on working on the server. Now, inherently also though, days that I stream are not days that I go to a grocery store or leave the house for a major shopping trip or anything like that. So I often lose the Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday and Sundays of a week for those actions, which happen semi-regularly. So that is another thing to be aware of and understand. More and more, the laid back 2 recordings per month concept, I think, is going to be a permanent fixture. We might even get down to 1 recording. I guess if I get down to no recordings per month, then I'm not even running a YouTube channel much at that point if I'm just playing Hearthstone. Hearthstone in itself is not getting anywhere as many views as it used to. I can tell that because the card, revealing all the cards and looking at all the cards, was not very well received so far today. Nobody's really watched those videos. That might be because people aren't that interested in Hearthstone, or it might be because I'm just late to the party. That could be another factor.
Access denied.
Alright. So hit this, and then hit this, and then hit this, and then do this.
Reporting for justice.
We'll just attack with that and kill that guy. So yeah, I'm thinking in my head, yeah, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. I probably should just schedule. Those are going to be the TV days. Those are going to be the days where you just do things not YouTube related. I barely even got the Hearthstone expansion card reveals split up and scheduled and labeled in time. I was doing that at like 2 or 3 in the morning and scheduling them to air at like noon that day, which I had a whole day to do it and didn't get around to it. So yeah, I'm just getting less and less efficient with my old age and lack of energy and insomnia and poor health in general. And yeah, that gets scary certainly, because if I was ever just to do the smart thing and quit YouTube and try and go get a job somewhere, like, I don't know at what kind of job I could even physically do, since YouTube is just sitting in a chair talking, and I can barely get around to doing that. Well, we've now won 2 games of any class. I guess the question should be, do I want to stretch this out and try and play 6 cards that cost 8 or more, which I don't think I'd be able to do very easily? Or do I want to just jump to the European account and do that? I think it's time to jump over to the European account. By the way, if there was any chat messages when I was looking at the new cards for the new expansion, that chat did not show up at all. I was looking at the chat, certainly, but it seems like maybe messages didn't load. So here's all the cards for the new expansion. So I just want to put out a blanket apology if somebody did try to chat. I didn't see the messages. The only reason I even think that there might have been chat messages, which I suspect there actually wasn't, is because when I reloaded the chat today, it seemed like there might have been some text there. It kind of showed some text and then immediately disappeared, but that could just be a glitch or chat messages from some previous time. Although Friday also didn't seem like it had any chat, so
Come on in, spend an evening by the fire.
that's probably enough rambling today. We may also get another daily quest later in the evening, since we're starting kind of early today. So I guess we'll be fine as long as we play Warlock here and get 3 victories with Warlock. This Tavern Brawl again should be done, and it is. So yeah, let's go through the news, because yeah, this very possibly is going to be a short experience. So we have a game on Steam here called Final Crash. It's a demo. Usually we don't see demos come out on what's on Steam, so I don't know why this game specifically made that happen. It looks like it's a beat 'em up game. It looks like it's kind of fine, but it's a demo right now, so in this weird case, I think we ignore it until it actually comes out. It says it's single player with local multiplayer, but most of these beat 'em up games do seem to, particularly when there's 4 characters, seem to be more focused around having multiple players. Speaking of which, what is that? That Rumble City Girls game? I don't think that's the name. It's not Raccoon City Girls. It's
Why do you go?
I should have just waited and played this first. The beat 'em up with the two Japanese girls put out a new trailer from Way Forward. I guess I could just type in Way Forward and let's see if I can find it that way. Forward with an A. There you go.
So many possibilities.
Put this apple on your head. I'll get around on it.
Well, let's see how would we do this? Is this game actually on Steam so far? No, it's not on. It's not even listed on Steam, so I have no way of finding the name of the game. But yeah, Way Forward put out a trailer for their River City Girls. That's the name of it, which is a River City Ransom spiritually inspired game. Okay, how would we want to do this? Here.
I'll get around on it.
Here. Here.
Hey, catch!
And here. And in return. I don't think it was necessary to bring up the trailer for the River City Girl trailer. It was just a teaser trailer for a minute, just showing one of the two girl fighting characters. They get their boyfriends kidnapped and then they go through an adventure, arcade style beat 'em up game. Yeah, trying to avoid things that are just 100% hype advertisements if we can. Well, we're gonna die one way or the other if we do that. Next, we have a game on Steam called Day and Night. Now, this graphics look slightly more polished than ever than usual as a platforming game that has light puzzle mechanics. I don't think any of these single images explain things quite right, though, so the video is kind of important. You have a character in shadow who apparently cannot be visible at all if he's in light, and then a character in light who apparently cannot be visible. I would imagine it's the same, that the light character actually can't ever be in shadow because the light character is the one that is projecting the light. In a weird way, it seems like the characters are doing different things in this kind of platforming puzzle game, where both characters need to get to their respective doors, but this guy isn't pumping out anti-light that like a black hole. It's not absorbing light or anything. It's just he's the weaker character. So Night and Day is $8.99. It supports a bunch of languages. I'm willing to suspect that this might be a better game than one would expect. So I'm gonna put Night and Day on the follow list. I feel like I've seen a game that looks a lot like that was not as polished and didn't have as much gameplay examples, and when I saw it before, well, when I saw a game like that before, I was not as impressed as I am right now. Now, maybe I'm just being generous, but it is just kind of possible. Give your demons +1 attack, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. Well, do I even have any demons? Nope. That'll summon some demons. We're just kind of trying to play Warlock cards and get victories. Gamatsu has an article here. Con Valeria, China Joy 2019 off-screen gameplay. Another game from the China Joy presentation happened. So, off-screen gameplay meaning someone has a camera actually just pointing to the screen. This looks like a Fortnite style clone, if I was to guess. Maybe MMO, player versus player thing, PvP. It's, without going into the real system and just seeing gameplay though, you really can't say a lot. It just looks like a first-person shooter game with a lot of player versus player elements. The developer says that it's a shooting game that aims to attract players with a different emotional clutters, realistic experiences, and strong and smooth battle gameplay. It's for the PS4. I don't know what emotional clutters is, though. Is that supposed to be emotional clusters? That wouldn't make sense either. So I think there's a major mistranslation there as far as what is trying to be said. Gamatsu has another article. AI Limit, China Joy 2019 off-screen gameplay. I guess what they did, if I was to expect, here it is. River City Girls Masako trailer, if you're interested in that. I imagine what happens as an event like this is you point a camera at a screen and you get some footage, and then what you do is you ask the people, hey, can you give me some cleaner footage of that you were recording, right? Because almost certainly they were. This looks like a more shield and sword player versus player game, and I imagine Chinese game developers are going to heavily try to go with the MMO player versus player fad, because it looks a real little Dark Souls there with that backstab. But the thing you're going to run into is people are kind of over the fad of player versus player. I think outside of large countries like China, outside of China in particular, and I just don't think that's going to be the greatest of a game experience in general. It would be, it's like they're a few generations even away from cloning something like Destiny, where I think Destiny has basically no player versus player elements. So it's just player versus event elements, and Destiny tried for years and has been trying for years to get a player base. Overwatch, again, a thing that set a fad, but even that's a few years old. So a player versus player MOBA, from my perspective, as somebody who doesn't play player versus player MOBAs, are 4, 5, 6 fads behind what would be popular these days. If anything, I would say the most popular fad right now is auto chess fads, things that are closer to auto chess, as spin-offs of League of Legends, which League of Legends is still pretty popular, and things like that, and Dota. Although I'm not 100% sure how popular Dota and League of Legends really are right now.
Why do you call?
So, yeah, it feels like,
Past the pirate's code.
particularly when you're making something that's player versus player, you're trying to not write a lot of story or not write a lot of enemy AI or anything like that. Which I don't think is a way to succeed in game development.
Job's done.
Like, if anything, fighting games have gotten deeper and deeper into having story modes. And fighting games are one of the genres of games that could easily argue they don't need that type of thing. But you kind of do need it. You kind of need everything. Your game has to compete against all other games, not just games in a similar genre. Alright. Stealth. Then this. This.
Back to the void.
I guess that. And then the turn. Moving on, Evo happens. So in Evo, Under Night in Birth EX late CL-R has been announced. So this is the newest version of the Under Night in Birth series. A new playable character and nearly 1,000 balance changes have been made. It seems like the Under Night fighting series probably is a little bit more iterative in their releases than just all new versions. Unlike, say, Street Fighter, where it's just there's Street Fighter 4, there's Street Fighter 5. We might make some slight changes and make an arcade edition or a hyper edition. The Under Night series is 2D for the most part, very smooth, fast framed, fast paced anime fighting, with, I think, swords and weapons. I feel like this probably, as a series, is in the top 3 of fighting games, but I feel like it very possibly is one of the most difficult ones too. So, and Evo, unlike PAX, is kind of the linchpin of showing some of this content, because it goes off and shows that, what am I trying to say here? Evo is a really nice specialized convention in a world where we no longer have really nice specialized conventions. When you go to E3, you're getting announcements for all kinds of varieties of games, and nothing is getting a focus at all. When you go to PAX, you're getting either very little announcements for any new games, or you're just games in general, although PAX is becoming more of its own thing. If you go to Otakon, you're getting a little bit of anime visual novels getting announced at Otakon, but Otakon, if I can pronounce it correctly, is really not a video game convention, and I don't think anybody would realistically try to make a claim that it is. The Comic-Con is not specialized specifically to comics, so you might see some announcements at Comic-Con for video games, and it's getting just crazier and crazier as things happen. Where it feels like Evo is really the only thing that has video games in it as far as the convention, that really just focuses on, it's a fighting tournament that is the fighting tournaments of fighting tournaments. I'm sure there are probably some League of Legends experiences where a new upgrade to League of Legends is announced, but I wouldn't know anything about that. And then you had like QuakeCon happen very recently, and nothing really came out for or about QuakeCon. So you kind of know from that bit of information that there's a lack of anything to impress me by. I feel like I'm just rambling at this point. I'm gonna drink some water and see if I can gain my composure and start thinking about what I'm saying.
Drink up me
Well, to wrap it up, I think, yeah, cons don't feel like they're doing great as far as being places where fan bases can go to get new announcements or to have an experience that interests them or that's entertaining around their interests. I'm not sure cons ever in general were that good, though. That they've always been either industry insider conventions or they've been just public facing conventions that are designed to sell you things.
I must protect the wild.
Your soul shall be mine.
Moving on, EVO Japan 2020 is set for January 24th through 26th. It'll feature BlazBlue Cross-Tag Battle, not to be confused with the game we just looked at that I've forgotten the name of. There's 2, maybe even 3 Japanese games that have very weird names. In Birth, what was it? Under Night in Birth game series is not BlazBlue series. But yeah, EVO Japan 2020, BlazBlue Cross-Tag Battle, Soul Calibur 6, Taken 7, and more. There's more that will be announced at a later date. So it's more in the article actually telling you what the more is. Of course, the Japanese 2020 Olympics is a big deal, so everybody's going to try to work their way around that. Now, I think also it's worth mentioning that EVO Japan is not EVO proper, if I'm figuring this out correctly. So, EVO Japan is coming out in about 6 months, but then the next EVO will be in about 12 months. But I'm not sure if there's any specific major difference between EVO Japan and EVO proper. It will just eventually, they need to add one in Germany and add one in Australia or South America or the South Africa region. And then they could have a EVO South, North, East, and West. Of course, having one in Germany is hardly really that north, but it would be north enough. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. A new Guilty Gear title has been announced also. Guilty Gear going for more smooth animation. I'm going to jump through this one because this one looks so smoothly animated that I'm afraid this teaser trailer is going to get content ID'd. Of course, this is a teaser trailer that's fully animated, and you're going to find that the full game is not really as cinematic as what you're seeing there. They are definitely over-promising and will under-deliver. I can't imagine that there's any way that that's not the case with that teaser trailer. Moving on, for PC, PS4, and Switch, BlazBlue Cross-Tag Battle version 2.0 launches November 21st. and adds 9 DLC characters. So it seems like BlazBlue is taking the path of adding DLC characters instead. We could skim through this trailer too and see if any of it wants to load. So there's a new BlazBlue and a new BlazBlue and an update to BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. What you get from this more than anything is there definitely, from my experience, has been a long growing element of characters and games for the 2D fighting genre of games that has been mostly ignored in the United States and in the West. These games have not been talked about, they have not been covered, and so because you're in that position where just now we have enough access to what the world is being advertised, just now we start to see, oh yeah, they didn't stop at Street Fighter 2 Hyper Edition and Hyper Turbo Edition with the 2D games, because frankly, if you'd asked me 10 years ago when was the last good 2D fighting game, I'd say yeah, it's got to be Street Fighter 2, because Street Fighter 3 I believe went to 3D, and at that point I wouldn't have known about any of the other games or thought them big enough for it to matter, because I wasn't a PC gamer and because I wasn't coming from a more worldwide perspective or a Japanese perspective. So yeah, let's go and attack here. And I should have done this, but whatever. Let's go ahead and do this. Now let's go ahead and do this. And then in return, I guess. That's not super helpful. So, trying, or at least planning on getting into fighting games. Now, I'm in a very weird position where it's like, oh yeah, this has been happening kind of in a underground, fan-based niche culture that I know nothing about. It would be the equivalent of me trying to get into, like, the Beatles music. I'm just gonna play casual here because I'm fairly certain we need victories, and I have not been able to get a single victory so far, and 3 victories is asking a lot. The only other thing I could do is play custom warlock, but I don't think that would do me any better. So yeah, if I was to try to get into the Beatles music, I wouldn't know a thing, and everybody else in the community and fan base of Beatles music would look at me and go, have you been living under a rock? And effectively I have been, both for Beatles music and fighting games. And I'd like to correct that once I can find the energy and time. Just even wrap my head around it. And the Beatles experiment there, or example, is do you listen to some of the first album of the Beatles, or do you just jump into the White Album? What is the recommended listening order for the Beatles? How much do you really have to know? Can you just jump into the last, whatever, I don't even know what the last Beatles album would be. I guess that might even be up for debate, what the last true Beatles album is. Moving on though, let's just burn through this news. We have a game here called Mortar, which looks like a low effort asset flip game. Although there are a lot of assets here, it's pretty obvious it's a GTA clone, and it's just been designed to be simplistic and simple. They want $11.99 discounted on it, English only. There's not enough visual polish in a game like this to make me want to see it. You see here a person showing you video where they're just kind of walking around, which tells me there's probably very little programmed as far as physics and interactions. All of this video is just people walking around and running around, which seems to be a red flag in my book. Or I would call it a red flag. And let's see. TechCraft has an article, Devil's Hunt PC release date announced. Nintendo Switch added to the planned consoles. Devil's Hunt being one of the China Joy games. It will come to PC on September 7th, 2019. So we'll see it's actually not too far away. It looks like it might be a Devil May Cry style game. So that might be interesting. Yeah, it's just really going to come down to how does the game actually play. The thing about Devil May Cry in particular is that's not a series that is good because it looks good. That's nice, certainly, and part of it, but Devil May Cry is known for being the best because it is the best at what it does, because it is smooth in its actions and its iterations. Right, well, I guess we can do this. TechRaptor has another article here. Japanese indie fighter Ultra Fighter Dai Kayanta 2 makes a splash at EVO. This is a very weird fighting game, certainly, visually. And this might be a case of they had a weird games block at EVO, kind of like the Games Done Quick events do. And people really liked it for its silliness. But if I was to evaluate this game, I'd say, oh, this looks horrible. It looks like MS Paint graphics. Maybe it plays really well? Like, that probably is the case. But let's be honest, this is not a game that I could recommend people play or purchase, if it is even available for purchase. And it's really not a game I could recommend to people in general. So, yeah. I don't know what information you really take from that kind of article. It's like, yes, there are weird indie games. If you can go find footage of that weird indie game from EVO, you probably will have a fun time watching it. But I can't really recommend it as a product. And as I see video game criticism as consumer advice first and foremost, I don't see the use or the reason behind something like talking about something like that too much. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Doom's 3 Inner Demons, a conflicted design. This is probably a retrospective on Doom 3, comparing Doom 3, I would assume, versus Doom 3 BFG edition. But I'm in a particularly weird position now that I played Doom 2016 Reboot. I don't know if I would ever really want to go back and play Doom 3 or Doom 3 BFG edition. It would be certainly at the end of the list. I guess if I had time, I'd play it right before play it just like right before I played Doom Eternal. So if that already was something that was on the table, maybe that would make some sense. But otherwise, yeah, I don't understand it. I've heard people certainly compare the Fear series to Doom 3 and how the Fear series was doing very well at the time, and Doom 3 was not, did not. So it would kind of make sense if I was to cover the Fear series, which I kind of do want to do it, that it might be a point where it makes sense to play Doom 3 after or in between Fear 1 and Fear 2. That might be a good comparison game, more than I would have thought of. But in general, even with the re-release of Doom 3 and putting it on new consoles, it's not really the kind of game I think anybody should bother to spend their time on. If I was to cover it, I can almost guarantee you I'll say don't play this game at the end of my coverage. Let's see. Just hold each turn. This one's gonna do 10 damage. I should just play this now. TechRaptor has an updated article. E3 vulnerability leaks personal information for over 2,000 media members. The E3 is run by the ESA. A lot of the mainstream video game media seems to have not reported much on this leak. That leaked their own information. So, names, addresses, things like that. Which, frankly, if you're actually a media person, some of that information should have been public anyways, but not all of it. Like, I don't think it's realistic to expect that that everybody's address should be out there, but their name and their business phone number should be out there. Their business email should be out there. So if you were to really break down what was leaked per media employee, media member, that some of it really shouldn't be that big of a loss, but some of it definitely was. And it's not kind, it's not nice, it's not fair to celebrate or condone doxing of anyone, even if it is the mainstream video game media. That being said, a lot of the mainstream video game media came back and either didn't report about this story or blamed YouTubers or somebody else, when this is square on the shoulders of E3 and the ESA. They had a website linking to a his article here says had a page on the website linking to a spreadsheet file with the personal information of each journalist, YouTuber, streamer, and developer, etc. So it wasn't just mainstream journalists, it was also YouTubers that went to E3. So it's just like bad security. It listed their full name, phone number, address, and other information as well. Which, again, if you're going to E3 and getting on a list like this, your full name and your business phone number and your business address should be out there because you're a journalist and you'd want people to be able to contact you. But that's if it's your personal information, that you probably don't want that out there. Let's see. Is there anything else to really mention here? I guess we could look at the update. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know what you can really do now. Basically, if people didn't want that information out, they have to move, or they have to potentially change their phone number, change their name, things like that.
Is someone injured?
So there, apparently, according to one of these tweets, there might be a lawsuit in the works, which, fair enough. But that makes sense. I should have attacked with that first. But wait a minute, that should have done two damage, and this should have done 1 damage. How did that guy survive?
Is someone injured?
I'm not paying enough attention, clearly. So yeah, that happened. I would be very careful about considering going to E3 now, because you have this situation where your privacy is proven now not to be safe. So yeah, you're in a bad position, I think, if you wanted to go to E3, because they may do it again. Like, one would hope they wouldn't do it again, but they may do it again. And inherently, I think this is just a drop in the bucket of what could be a much longer discussion as far as the ESA not really doing a great job of running E3. E3 has been this mess of a event for the last few years, and I don't feel like it's gonna get any better.
Job's done.
So yeah, that's another thing to consider. I would not recommend people as journalists go to E3. It's not worth your time. I would not recommend people as fans of video games going to E3. It's not worth your money or time. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. Team Fortress 2 unusual crate bug depression has been resolved. I have no idea what this is, and I don't really care about Team Fortress to really find out. Let's see. A little over a week ago, the Team Fortress 2 community was hit by a crate bug significantly affecting its economy on Steam. Players can purchase keys either in-game or on Steam Community Market and unlock crates that can have rare items worth money. A recent update bugged the drop rate of rare item quality unusually in Team Fortress. It went from a low chance of under 1% to a 100% chance. Alright, well that would tank the economy, but it would also make a lot of players happy if they want that rare equipment. Although I guess the question is, how many people are actually playing Team Fortress 2 because they are interested in playing Team Fortress 2, and how many people are playing Team Fortress 2 because they just want to try and make some money off of it. So that's something to ask, certainly. Gamasutra has an article. Get a job, join Housemarque as a lead artist. That's in Helsinki, Finland. I'll leave it at that. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Battles for Spain. Let's skip over to the screenshots. This looks like another tabletop game, of which there's been a lot of them, so there will be a time, certainly, if I start putting a bunch of these on the follow list and then find out that there's just like way more than I'd ever want to play. Honestly, I probably would only want to play 1 or 2 games that are a tabletop war simulator type game. That being said, I'm also kind of ignorant, so I don't know enough about these styles of games to see whether they're good or not. What I could say, and this is a little superficial certainly, is that both videos have not shown very much gameplay at all in the 2 videos for display. They want $26.99 discounted. It's English, French, and Spanish. I think this game prices itself out. I think it does not sell itself well. And for that reason, I think I'm willing, I'm going to actually say it, I am willing to choose to not go any further with it or put it on the follow list. So yeah, I'm gonna make an executive decision on that one.
Take to the streets.
Gamma Sutra has what looks like a video essay here called Making Family Matter and the Children of Mordecai, which is coming in 2019. So this is a hype article. If you're interested, check it out. But until the game is actually out, I'm not going to pay it any attention. Alright. Need this down. There we go. Interesting. Next we have a game on Steam called Under What, and interesting, it says this video is a spoiler as is, which seems weird that you would put a spoiler, you put a spoiler in your trailer, and then you're going to show the game's trailer anyways that auto plays on Steam. This looks like this is a simplistic adventure game, like with a simplistic story. It's free, it's English and Russian, it might be a Russian troll game. It doesn't look like much of a game anyways, regardless of that, so I'm not going to put it on the follow list just because it's free. There we go. So I can do this, and then I can do this. We did the Warlock class cards, so we can play as Priest now, which that might be more interesting. So yeah, let's get that done. Next we have a game on Steam called The Creature, which looks like it might just be a low effort horror game.
Anduin versus Geralt.
You can definitely tell as I'm skipping around this video that it's not willing to show you anything at all. Every single picture is just, you see the moon, you see darkness out on the side, and there's 4 screenshots. There's nothing here. It's early access. They want $7.19. It's English only. Claims to be rated M for mature, but gives no reason for why it would be M for mature, which is the bigger question that you'd want answered. I ran into another game that we've talked about specifically too, that, you know, one of the RPG Maker anime games that was tagged with sexual context, and I was like, I just don't know what's in these games because of the way Steam is showing them to me. There needs to be, and I've argued in the exact opposite of this, and my opinion has just changed, that there actually needs to be something in the Steam store that you can click and where you can see like adult screenshots, adult video that the creators create and put up, so you kind of know what the level of the adult content is when it's tagged as having adult content. It does not really work anymore to just show me what looks like an RPG Maker game and then say it has sex content in it and not really tell me how much or in what way, because now 2 or 3 times I've seen on other sources that have shown me screenshots that are not on Steam, and I'm like, oh, now I get what this game is. I guess in the end, so
Android
far at least,
versus
every game
vanilla.
that this has happened with, they weren't games that were going to make it to the fall list anyways, or even the wish list for that matter. So I don't know if it really mattered that these kind of games didn't really sell themselves well to me, but it eventually will matter. It eventually will get to a point where it's like you will not understand what the game is until they can properly advertise it. So, and my first suggestion to Steam when they were talking about adding adult games was to have just a completely segregated Steam store, like just an adult section, and they're kind of half and half on it. Some pages you have to click to see and verify your age. Some pages you have to be logged in to see. Technically, I think adult games you have to be logged in to see, but I'm not 100% sure that's actually true. So you run into some weirdness in that also. Let's move on though. We have a game on Steam called Agnon Monstrous Shutdown Sequence. This looks to me like it is a low effort asset flip style game with just some random shapes and some random looking enemies. Even if there was a game here, which there might be, what I'm seeing is so visually unimpressive, and the name is just gibberish. I don't want to play it. Early access for $14.99. No, no discount whatsoever. Requires a third party utilize, English only. Yeah, that's not a game that I think needs to be on the list, or that people need to really look at. That may be the entirety of all the games we look at today, frankly, too, because heck, it was a slow weekend, and I think we're still gonna run into slow weekends probably from here to the end of the year. We may just be in a new era of games not really coming out on the weekends, and video game news not really coming out on the weekends ever. Next, we have a game on Steam called Alien Creatures, which clearly this is just an asset flip game with a demon with a whip character whipping other kind of giant golem deep demons and wandering around an asset flip area. The alien creature, as it's being described, is far too large for the area and cannot really easily transverse. This is 99 cents. English says it has full audio. Of course, it's garbage. So, we want to play this, and then this, and then we want to attack this. I watched a speedrun of Dead Space 3, and when watching someone speedrun through it, it doesn't look probably half as bad as the game actually plays. Dead Space 3, of course, being the game that's not on Steam, so I have no interest in playing it just because I don't want to purchase it on Uplay to play a bad game that everybody knows is a bad game. Inherently, I believe the reason why Dead Space 3 didn't come to Steam is because they didn't want to give a cut for the microtransactions to Valve, and in that one step, I feel like they probably
is someone injured?
Began the battle towards the Epic Store and things like that. I suppose it still is very much the case that people who are selling microtransactions on Valve are giving a cut. People who are selling microtransactions on games on Steam are getting a cut, giving a cut to Valve. I could see a reason to make a small transaction charge there, but I don't fully see why you would, why something would be justified in receiving a 30% cut or something along that line for a for a microtransaction item. On the other hand, YouTube is certainly getting into that terrible business practice with them getting a cut for every like super chat and every donation and subscription, when that's not really where they should be trying to make money, or screwing the content developers. Let's see, moving on. Gamasutra has an article. Slytherin acquires Master of Magic publishing rights from Atari. Atari, of course, now is not the Atari of old, but this is a company that bought the rights to Atari years ago and changed their name to Atari. I believe it was Infogrames, but who knows? So it's really just a holding company more than anything else. So it makes perfect sense that they would license out the publishing rights to a game. But I've never heard of Master of Magic either. So you're kind of Slytherin is a Harry Potter reference. So maybe we'll see a re-release of Master of Magic, and maybe that'll be something of some interest. That being said, unless they're going to make a new, highly modern reboot, remake, continuation of Master of Magic, and convince me that the Master of Magic series is something that's relevant, I seriously doubt I would play that game. Alright, we've got Murlocs. We'll take 20 turns and win with a Rogue Warrior. These would be the hardest ones, so let's just re-roll that. Pirates. Alright, that's still pretty hard. Alright. Meanwhile, we need to get this done. So, let's see. Rogue. And, no, let's go with... yeah, Rogue. And then we'll just see if we can play the Pirates right now. But I kind of question we will. Alright. So ideally we would want the cannon. Let's see. If we play Amalgam, that's a good card because I'll play Pirates and Murlocs at the same time. Other pirates get buffed. This. This. And this. That seems like that's probably the best pirates we can do out of the pirates that aren't in the wild. There are definitely some better pirate cards we could be playing if we were playing in wild. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2020. I feel like we looked at a game that looked exactly like this. This is a fantasy football simulator. I don't see any reason why you'd want to pay $31.49 discounted for this. English is the only language it supports. So yeah, nothing here looks like it's quality enough to justify that price. So Epic here has put out a statement on misinformation and abuse. Let me see if I can control plus this to see if we can get the text to even slightly be readable. Now, without reading this article, my guess is what this is Ooblets has been attacked, I think, mostly fairly so, for taking a screw it, we've got ours attitude. They took the Epic deal and put out a statement that was tone deaf, in my opinion, as far as the current feelings that people have against Epic. And then I know there was at a certain point what seems to be a faked Discord comment. Apparently it's kind of easy to fake Discord comments to make it look like someone else said something they didn't say. So Discord, like most chat services and probably all chat services, should not be taken as guaranteed evidence. So what it looks like was that the Ooblets creator posted something rather inflammatory along the lines of I believe all gamers or all entitled gamers should be gassed. But it looks like that's been faked, or it was deleted immediately. So who knows? And so my guess is now Epic is going to come out and make a statement saying, oh, well, we don't condone people passing on misinformation and attacking our partners. And the Ooblets creator is the victim here, when at the very least the Ooblets creator is the person who invited this attack in the first place by just a tone-deaf announcement and a poor PR campaign, poor amount of support, or public relations as far as this announcement. So let's skim this article and see if I'm right about that. We at Epic Game often share views about game business and companies. It was to support the entire game community. The announcement of Ooblets highlighted a disturbing trend which is growing and undermining healthy public discourse. That's a coordinated and deliberate creation and promotion of false information, including fake screenshots, videos, and technical analysis, accompanied by harassment of partners, promotion of hateful themes, and intimidation of those who oppose the views. Epic is working together with many game developers and other partners to build what we believe it will be a healthier, more competitive multi-store world in the future. Remain fully committed, blah blah blah. Many thanks to you. The thing I'll say about this statement, even though the text was incredibly small when it first started, is they have said, it seems, the right things without going off on crazy rants that would probably be, let's face it, crazy SJW rants. They're not really attacking anyone or blaming anyone. They've kept it short and sweet. This is actually a really good statement from Epic. Did Epic really need to make a statement? Maybe not. Like, that's part, I guess, of the question here, is that is this really a situation that Epic should have spoken out on, or is this a situation that Ooblets creators should have spoken out on? And it will be certainly interesting to see if this is an actual campaign and every Epic announcement will get more and more hostile like this, or if this isn't just a particularly hostile case because of the way the developers did their thing. That's one thing to consider. I guess the other thing to consider here would also be, was this intentional on the other side? And it's rather hard and mean to make this suspicion and say it out loud, but was it the intention of Epic? Did Epic and Ooblets get together and say, hey, let's go really tone deaf and really hard on this so we can get a big backlash? There's a lot of question now. There was a lot of people hyped for the game Ooblets. Now it's reasonable to say that any hype you had for the Ooblets should probably be completely removed, because that game is itself, the game, is probably not going to be that good. They already have their money. Why would they be motivated in any way to work hard and ensure that they make a good product? At least in part, that is going to be part of the argument that is put out there, is they've made their money, so who cares? That seems to be in part the attitude that they are taking, and anyone who takes the Epic deal seems to be taking. And Ooblets was supposed to be the PC version of Pokemon, and now you've got two versions of Pokemon that are treating people badly in the forms of the original version of Pokemon, and now Ooblets. So yeah,
Checkmate.
like there is always the possibility that some of these fake screenshots and attacks are kind of false flag operations. That could be the case. It's more likely and easier just to assume it was trolls in general, but it could also be that these things are being encouraged, these actions are being encouraged by Epic, so that Epic can put themselves in the position of saying they're the victim, which is just straight out of the SJW playbook. Is if you're not a victim, then you have no right to speak, therefore you have to always make yourself out to be a victim, even when you're clearly on the attack. But I do have to applaud Epic's statement. It short, sweet, to the point, stating facts in general, while not really coming out and accusing any individuals or making any crazy statements.
Checkmate. Die, landlubber.
So, yeah. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Mine Ralph, which looks like it is a low effort, like MS Paint. I guess you would call this maybe a little bit like Marble Madness, more than just Super Meat Boy. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything here visually that appeals to me. It's $14.99, supports a bunch of languages: Russian, Chinese, Danish, and German, which is an odd combination. But yeah, doesn't look like a good game by any means. Alright. Charge. Alright. So. What do I want to do? Do this.
Job done.
Right. In the turn. Next, we have a game on Steam called Dragon Guide, which looks like a low-effort asset flip game again. Let's see. Sea Dragon. Looks like this might be a really ugly VR game. Yeah, it does require VR. $2.79 discounted, but it's way too cheap for a VR game. English only. Yep. Game looks terrible. Not going to the follow list. Now the problem I'm foreseeing here, and this is gonna suck, is we're gonna run into a situation here where I just lose. So I'm gonna try to put this here, and then try to put that there, and then attack that,
Job done.
and then end the turn. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Nexon is going to acquire the Swedish game developer Embark Studios. Do we have a clue what Embark Studios has made? No. So this is a little too inside baseball, frankly. So forget it. Forget that article. So we have a charge and deal 2 damage. Yeah, I'm probably gonna lose here because these two are going to attack and do 10 damage. Did that play enough pirates? No. I need to play 2 more pirates and take 7 more turns. If I don't win in this tavern brawl, then I'll play as mage and hope that lets me win. I think mage for this tavern brawl is probably the best move, and then if there's anything else to do, I can play a Murloc deck to probably play the remaining Murlocs pretty easily. Next, we have a game on Steam called Between Planets, which seems to be an underwater game. No, it's not all underwater, it's just some underwater. It felt like all of it was underwater from the looks of it. We're seeing some dark screenshots. We're seeing what looks like just some random alien terrain generation. The No Man's Land, is that the No Man's World? No Man's Sky? That's the name of the series. Yeah, this feels like a worse version of No Man's Sky, knowing that No Man's Sky has actually done a decent job of adding more features slowly but surely. So, buying Between Planets for $19.99 with no discount and seeing that it's English and Chinese sounds like a very bad decision. This clearly is just a No Man's Sky ripoff and a cheap Chinese game on top of that. Right. This, and then this. And then end the turn. The problem with playing the rogue and then playing this card is you don't equip a weapon ever. That was a mistake on my part. But that's only the case in this chessboard style experience.
Job done.
Next we have a game on Steam called Stick 'em Up, which this video looks interesting, but I suspect this is a low effort bank robbing simulator. Maybe it actually isn't. There is Payday 1 and Payday 2, which never really succeeded. And so my stomach's growling. Wow. Yeah, this seems like it is particularly selling itself on violence and guns. Not really the day to be releasing a game like this. This is just a low effort game, I'm fairly certain. You can tell because it's discounted to $8.99, whereas if this was a really good game, this would be a $20 game minimum. You can see it supports a bunch of audio for other languages, but not the interface for any other languages, which is also a red flag and weird. So yeah, stick them up. Not something I think that needs to be on the fall list. I think it also would boil down, it's fair to say that a bank robbing scenario that you do multiple times on top of many other gameplay missions would be a lot more interesting than the entire game just being bank robbing. So let's go ahead and play this pirate. And play this pirate.
Job's done.
And then hit my turn. Next we have a game on Steam called Trace of Past, which looks like a low effort horror game. A lot of dark, spooky areas. I bet we don't see an enemy. I bet we don't. Okay, there's some kind of enemy chasing after you, but everything's so incredibly dark I can't even tell what it is. Every screenshot is dark screenshot syndrome. It's just like cannot see anything at all. It's $4.24 discounted. It's English with full audio Russian. You usually don't see that, but no interface or subtitles in Russian. So yeah, this feels like a cheap Russian horror game, for lack of a better term. Just go ahead and take that, I guess. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. Far Lone Sales is coming to the Switch on August 18th. That is the steampunk like sail ship that you run. It's like a sail train or something. I don't know what you'd describe it as. But it's, I don't think, much of a game. It's like super short and extremely linear, and you just kind of get to a point where you find some fuel on the ground and you pick up the fuel, and that fuels you for your next bit of the journey, and you have to be careful not to burn the fuel inefficiently or you won't make it to the next point. And that's kind of it. Like weirdly simplified gameplay. Let's see. Let's go and take this. Get this. And this. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Rift surpasses the Vive as VR devs' top platform in the new XRDC innovative report. I've never heard of XRDC. It's part of the Game Developers Conference, which is part of Informa, owned by Gamma Sutra. So that might, they're not really disclosing that they have an affiliation to XRDC, the Game Developers Conference, GDC. Not disclosing it directly in the article. So, most people, 23% according to this survey, are going to use Android tablets or phones with using AR Core, or Google something else, or a HP Reverb. And then the HTC Vive is at 24%, where the next biggest thing is iOS tablet using AR kit. So 19% plus this 23% for cell phones. Basically, the Vive Pro is at 15%, the Oculus Quest is at 24%, and the Oculus Rift is the Valve Index is only at 6%. So yeah, there's some stuff there. Yeah. I don't know what else you really say about it. Is a bunch of fools who think VR is going to succeed think the HTC Vive is is going to help them make successful VR games. Here's an interesting question they also have: is where does your funding coming from? Angel funding from Steam, e.g. Steam Early Access. Angel investors 10%. Clients 27%. Companies' existing funds 41%. Crowdfunding. External publishing 10% from the government. 15% from grants. 23% from personal funds. 10% from venture capital. So I guess the difference between venture capital and angel investing or angel funding is that there's no expectation of owning shares or paying back money, would be my guess, if you're an angel investor. That's the best I can figure as far as that scenario. Do we have anything we can do? Seems like it always offers me a 3, a 5, and a 7. It never offers me a 1, when frankly I could do better with the 1. There's nothing else in this article just really mentioned, though. I'm still very negative over the idea of VR, though. It's just not a technology that's cheap enough or successful enough. I have been looking at the new spooky series of Lego sets that you can play an augmented reality game on top of. Honestly, it's called like Hidden Inside or something. Honestly, as much as I'm a fan of Lego, it's not great. It really isn't. But it does something. It's moving the concept of the Lego bricks into something slightly more digital, and that's kind of what they needed to do, is embrace new technology. And I think they will eventually get to the point where the augmented reality minigames are more interesting. But right now, it's, oh, you find a ghost in these setups, and then after you find the ghost, you just kind of tap a, you're really just tapping a button over and over again.
Checkmate.
Job's done.
To shoot at the ghost, and it doesn't seem to do anything else besides that. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, How the Church in the Darkness Creates a Dynamic Narrative. From what I've heard, people don't really like the gameplay of this, but they like the story of this game, which, that's fine and dandy, but if you can't bother to play the game, you won't bother to play the game. This is kind of a hype article for it. Yeah. I think, to get back to the Lego Hidden Inside series, I believe is what it's called, I think what's going to happen with it is it's very much, the sets are relatively expensive, and you're going to have to make a real big effort to get these relatively expensive sets into the hands of slightly younger kids, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, because by the time you get to a 10, 11, 12-year-old, it's going to be too late. What is going to be available on offer is not something you're gonna want a 6-7-year-old is gonna want to do. Let's see, drawing more cards is actually probably one of the best things you could do. Freeze every minion. I don't even know if freezing would work, but we'll try Cone of Silence. And that. What do we want to get rid of? Get rid of that to replace it with that. Change the cost of your minions in your deck to 1. That might be an interesting card to have. But it's not something I really need. So what do I want to get rid of? Otherwise, draw cards in this. Then done. And done. Next we have a game on Steam called Sabor 2D. This looks like a low effort top-down twin-stick shooter game. Well, it's not a top-down twin-stick shooter, it's a platforming shooter game. So a terrible version of a clone of something like My Friend Pedro that recently came out. This is discounted to 59 cents, English and Russian. 57 achievements. Clearly it's an achievement game. Clearly it's a low-effort Russian game.
White King.
On guard. None
So, yeah. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Google is developing a game and app subscription service called Play Pass, which seems insane that you would bring something out like that. Although, in all fairness, it was Amazon's App Store, which when it was first launched tried to be a real competitor to the Google Play Store. That eventually introduced that idea of just here's, if you're a Prime member or something along that line, you're allowed a ton of absolutely free games that have no microtransactions or anything like that. I'm not even sure if in the Google Play Pass that they're guaranteeing no microtransactions. What it really boils it down to is that of the hundreds of unlocked apps that will come with the Google Play Pass, those are the hundreds of games that actually deserve to be looked at and played, and everything else on the Google Play Store is probably complete garbage and not worth mentioning ever. Which is kind of the problem, and it's one of the reasons why if Valve stepped in and said games that are either from publishers or developers that have worked with us before can put Android or maybe even iOS apps that would install through the Valve app on Android or iOS, then you would have a level of quality that could really be appreciated there. But the last thing you would want is people paying $100 to put a Steam cell phone app on a Steam cell phone store and trying to flood Google or iOS with even more terrible apps. The fact that this Google Play Pass is not built into Stadia, though, is insane. It's just another example of how the
Job's done.
the people in charge of Google seem to do whatever they want, and they get these ideas in their heads, and then they don't actually ever turn out good products. The YouTube beta, in a lot of ways, is the exact same issues. They give us all this BS. We can't afford to maintain the website and the video manager as it is. It's just getting too expensive to maintain it. Why is it getting more expensive to maintain something that already exists? That doesn't make any sense. There's no legitimate argument that I can think of to say that the thing you've already invested in, the thing you've already developed, is somehow getting more expensive than developing something new, and in this case, developing something that's way worse. It flies in the face of realistic statements and reality. Like, if the new studio beta is doing the same thing that the old studio beta is, it's going to cost the same amount of money or more to accomplish that. That's just how that's going to break down. I don't know if this is the right move, but we'll see. There really is no way that this works any other way. But that's getting into kind of just a YouTube rant. No reason. Gamasutra has an article here. Koch Media opens a Polish publishing office to boost presence in Europe. There's also, I think, more talk and more articles about how Activision Blizzard has been avoiding paying taxes. If you want to search out that information, it doesn't really matter to me. Koch Media is the owner of the Dead Island and Saints Row franchise, which it publishes through Deep Silver, and was last year purchased by THQ Nordic. So THQ Nordic effectively is opening a new Polish office. Next, we have a game on Steam called Climb with Wheelbarrow, which clearly is a low-effort asset flip game. Although this concept is slightly interesting, and I assume this is just going to turn into a getting over it with B'nai Foddy type game, where you're just going to constantly get higher and higher by more ridiculous means. Like, it seems like this entire video is just a gameplay video. Yeah. Well, that's slightly funny and silly. It's not really a game. It's discounted to 89 cents. It's English and Russian. It's got 17 achievements. Yeah. It's just another low effort, cheap Russian game.
Checkmate.
Let's see. Oh, I didn't mention it, but I did watch The Boys, a Amazon Prime TV series. I'm not going to go into a full review of it. I'm just going to say it's not worth watching. It resolves absolutely nothing at the end of its 8 episodes, which is odd to have 8 episodes. And it's a worse version of The Watchmen, and does a worse story than Watchmen, while basically just ripping off Watchmen. There is a bigger issue, certainly, around this idea that Amazon Prime and Hulu and Netflix and soon Disney Plus and the CBS Interactive, there's this growing feeling that they all think they can just make bad shows, and as long as there's something new, even if it's terrible, people will stay subscribed. I never owned Amazon Prime because I wanted to watch their videos. In fact, I spent the better part of a year not watching any Amazon Prime videos. But yeah, if that was a factor, I would be unsubscribing from Amazon Prime after watching The Boys. It's really, really bad. Really SJW and insulting at the end of the second half of the series. Just coming out straight attacks in a lot of different ways, which is not appreciated. As a crazy liberal myself, it's not appreciated when you paint every single Christian as a horribly corrupt homophobe.
Well, no. I can wait.
And
Back to work.
it really spends the second half just attacking Christianity in a nasty way. Not enough thoughtful. This is why we believe these things. It's just really, really nasty. And then the first half of the series also just has a ridiculous amount of nudity and sex in it, which is a separate issue. As soon as somebody gets the funding for something like on HBO or Amazon Prime or Netflix, a lot of these developers say, hey, let's just use that as an excuse to throw in unnecessary nudity, which then makes your show be shorter to tell actual story and makes it harder to sell in syndication. So it's not good directing. If there needs to be a sex scene, fine. I'm perfectly happy to see a sex scene. If you want to shoot a porno, fine. I'm perfectly fine with you shooting a porno. But if you're trying to tell a story, then you want to try to get as broad an audience as possible. And I don't even know for the boys what the audience is. People that hate Marvel movies? People that hate Marvel characters? I mean, the general premise is all the superheroes of the Justice League, or their equivalent to the Justice League, are actually corrupt and evil, and you're going to find out what they're up to and try and kill them all. This group of mostly human people.
Black King versus the White King.
On guard.
So I don't know what target audience that is. It feels a lot like turning Captain America into a sleeper agent for Red Skull. It seems tone deaf to the audience that would like that show. There literally are no good villains in the entire, no super villains in the entire world of the boys, and that becomes a story point late into the story, but it also is so oversimplified, so ridiculous that there's this corporation that runs all superheroes in the United States. There's only one corporation that runs superheroes in the United States. There's no superheroes apparently outside of the United States, which would be like your first question as to why aren't there any superheroes outside of the United States. There are no supervillains at all. There's kind of nothing. It's a very simplified story, which you could have easily expanded it in several ways to make it more of a complicated thing. Where the Watchmen series, particularly if you're looking at the comic book and not the movie, it's a super long movie. The comic book's even longer. It goes into details. It tells a lot of story. Tells a lot of backstory. Watchmen does it way better.
Behold the tools of creation.
I didn't have time to really do that movie review though, so let's move forward. I have a game on Steam here called Feel Good, which seems like it's a kind of low effort platforming game where you're playing as like a fireman, but it's just like barely anything on the screen, little lines, in some kind of platforming game. Feels like you'd have maybe 20 minutes of gameplay in this. It's early access, it's free, it's English and French. So yeah, if you're interested in playing a free early access game, maybe this would interest you, but visually it definitely doesn't interest me. let's keep going. This. And this. In the turn. Gamatsu has an article here. Pokemon Shield and Sword, or Sword and Shield, news is coming August 7th. Well, I seriously doubt you will get here. The game is coming out November 15th, so I don't think you're getting a. Oh, we've heard your complaints about the lack of national Pokedex, and we're adding all the national Pokedex or anything. I don't think anything you hear is going to ring the bell of people being unhappy with what they're gonna get with Sword and Shield. Right. So what's interesting here is we'll see if this, which restores 2 health, will actually activate, or does being frozen not stop an auto attack when it's heal. Well, I guess we won't get that information after all. Darn. Gamatsu has an article here. Darksiders 2 Definitive Edition is coming to Switch on September 26th. Weird that the Definitive Edition, the Definitive Edition of Darksiders 2, is coming out on Switch, because it feels like they had just maybe 6 months earlier released the non-definitive edition on the Switch, and I don't know why you would do that. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not remembering things correctly. Maybe they've never put Darksiders 2 on the Switch, and this is the first release. That could be also the case. That they just released Darksiders 1 and Darksiders 3 on the Switch, which I think is true, but again, I could be wrong about that. Like, I am not going to be a valid source of any information on any of this today. So freezing things doesn't actually stop auto attack. So that's kind of a useless ability. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Red Death 8 Feet. This looks like this is a weird 4 asset flip low effort game. Let's see. What I'm running into, as I was trying to skip through that video, is just a lot of dark screenshot syndrome. It does feel like there's almost more gameplay here than you normally would see, but not really good gameplay still. Feels like there's actual RPG elements and shooting elements instead of just a horror game, a pure horror game. Regardless, it's early access. It's discounted to $2.69. It's English only with 22 achievements. I don't see anything here that justifies it being on the follow list. I am doing horrible here, and this is starting to peeve me quite a bit. So I may have to just play this off screen. Let's just finish the news and wrap up, because I need to get this tavern brawl done, and this is another one of these terrible tavern brawls that really you just have to bang your head against and hope that you can somehow find a way to survive. And seems like I've failed to do that. That.
Job's done.
Gamatsu has an article, Genshin Impact China Joy 2019 off-screen gameplay. did we talk about this already, or is this just yet another player versus player style game? This looks like a yet another player versus player MOBA game. I like the art style though, playing as a anime-esque mage girl. Looks like it might be a little bit more kid-friendly. Seems like there's also some climbing and platforming, which looks nice. Here we can see that the art style they are going for is definitely in that anime aesthetic. So there might be a little bit more Warcraft style gameplay in here instead of just full-on player versus player elements, but I think what you run into with this again is clearly this is designed for controller play too. I don't know how you make this a single player experience that would appeal particularly to me, and I'm not sure if Genshin Impact is a single player experience or a multiplayer experience you can sell outside of China very well, because the truth of the matter is Chinese people kind of know what they're buying, so they're not going to they're not just going to buy something that looks anime. They want it to actually be based on an anime they recognize. I'm going to take a break here and play Murlocs as we try to wrap up with the news. Gamasutra is still looking for a global partner marketing manager for the Sony PlayStation in San Mateo, California. Either they've left this job listing up, or they really having the time trying to find anybody. I would not be surprised if they're having a hard time finding anybody that they find satisfactory. And the fact that you're having open listings for that kind of job is kind of ridiculous in the first place. But this might also just be a case of they're going to leave that listing up for a month because they've already signed somebody and they know who that somebody is, but they haven't announced who that somebody is going to be. That could be the case also. Next we have a game on Steam called Winter Searing, which looks like it is a platforming infinite runner double jump game. There's almost a gameplay concept here that kind of interests me. This is not what you usually see with an infinite runner. That being said, it's boring and repetitive. It's kind of just a Flappy Bird concept. It feels like this is a demo concept that you would work on towards the process of making something like Celeste, but not something that you would put out. Well, that was a mistake. I did not realize Doomsayer was there. Winter Searing is free with some microtransactions to support the dev, and it's English only. We don't have a major problem with people saying, hey, here's $1 if you want to donate $1, here's $5, here's $10, and they're not even adding the 30% price that Steam would take on this, so they're taking that cut. So $1.70, or probably less than 70 cents, is actually going to the developer. That being said, this is still a pretty terrible game, so I don't know why you would want to support a developer who puts up a terrible game and then immediately begs for donations. At that point, you might as well be supporting a YouTuber like me who puts up their footage and begs for people to support them on Patreon or asks them to gift games on their Steam account, friend them and gift games. And in all fairness, I'm approaching my 8,000th video, and every video is at least averaging at least 30 minutes, if not an hour. So there's a lot of content I've made and put up for people to access free. Next, we have a game on Steam called May Mundo, which looks like a low-effort Stardew Valley clone. Farming simulator. I hate the font. It seems very generic and not thought through at all. It's $4.99, no discount. English and Portuguese, Brazil. I've heard that the Portuguese Brazilian community is very heavily active on the internet, and that might explain why we've seen like a significant amount of games on Steam that support English and then Portuguese Brazil as a language. I guess that makes as much sense as any other explanation I've tried to think of as to why I've seen so many games that support that language, but whatever. This next game is tagged nudity and sexual content, so let me just look at the screenshots and make sure nothing is not YouTube family friendly. Next we have a game on Steam called Hentai Light Up. It's another low effort puzzle game. Although I don't think a slide puzzle game. I think it's a, you have to click a box and then it inverts all the other boxes until you can see all the images. This artwork doesn't really match this artwork. As we go through it, this artwork doesn't really match that artwork, so either they licensed or purchased or stole all of these pictures. This is an extremely low effort game for 59 cents. Says it supports 26 languages with full audio, 20 achievements. Yeah, it's garbage. It's a garbage game. Let's see. Oh, wait. And what can we do now? This. And then this. And this. And attack here. And attack there. Next, we have a game on Steam called Side Choose. Let's see what this is. Looks like it's a dark screenshot horror game, although the art here looks particularly well done. So either this is a horror game with a lot of polish on it that is a low effort game, which I guess if it has a lot of polish on it you can't really call it a low effort game at that point, or there's actually something here. This is discounted to $2.39, so I imagine it's particularly short, but short and cheap kind of works. It says it has full audio in English, so I kind of need to put this on the follow list, because I think there might be a chance that this is actually a game worth looking at. I don't think that there's a great chance of that, but there is a small chance of that. This. And this.
There's little time.
And this. And then attack. 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 Did I play enough Murloc cards, or do I need to play more Murloc cards? We have about 10 more things to talk about, so one more Murloc game very possibly will be it. And we could have broken up into 2 recordings today, and I really need to get on that, but I didn't. Gamer Sutra has an article here, how Diablo met Left 4 Dead in co-op action RPG Kill Squad. This is a hype article, you can tell immediately, because they're taking this new game Kill Squad and mentioning Diablo and Left 4 Dead and trying to create a positive association that where one very possibly barely exists, if none at all. So this is a hype article about Kill Squad that I have no desire to read, and no desire whatsoever to read hype articles. Next we have a game on Steam called World of Guns. Again, very possibly not the best day to be putting out a game like this. Wow, this is interesting. I feel like World of Guns has been out before, or I've seen some of it. This is like the internal workings of a gun. So the question is this really just an asset flip experience, or is there something artistically here? What I'm not seeing is a... Oh, this is called World of Guns VR, but it seems to be about gun disassembly. This is early access. It requires a VR headset. It's free to play. It says it supports a bunch of languages. I like this concept. Like disassembling, maintaining, cleaning a gun is a non-violent way to educate yourself about guns instead of just shooting zombies. But I don't really know if that's what this is. I guess what I do with a case like this is I just put it on the follow list and see if it comes out of early access. I don't understand the tanks and the cars otherwise. World of Guns probably is from the developer of World of Tanks, and I don't think World of Tanks is particularly the greatest game ever. Clearly there's App Store and Google Play links too. But yeah, I'll put this on the follow list and we'll see if anybody thinks it's worth anyone's time.
Another concoction.
Let's see. Next we have a game that's a bunch of Asian characters and called Death Angel. It looks like it's an RPG Maker game. The animation style seems slightly rough, and that trailer showed me basically nothing. Also suffering from dark screenshot syndrome. Seems like they're cat girls. Like, this is a cat girl with cat ears, definitely, and this is a cat girl with cat ears. So I'm assuming this is a low effort Chinese game. English not supported, coming soon. Chinese, yeah. Interesting to mention that today, so far over the weekend, this has been the only RPG Maker looking game we've even seen come out. It would be extremely premature to assume that this is an indication that that we have seen the end of the potential end of RPG Maker games, because I don't think they would ever just disappear or die completely. But it is surprising that we didn't see more of them. But we didn't really see a lot of games in general. Just there's a lot more Gamatsu announcements today than anything. Speaking of Gamatsu, we have the Visara collection launches August 13th for PC and August 14th for the Xbox One, August 15th for the Switch. PS4 and Vita release dates have yet to be confirmed. These seem to be shoot-'em-up games that I don't think anybody would really recognize, or I wouldn't definitely recognize. Yeah, more shoot-'em-ups. I'm really surprised to see how popular the shoot-'em-up genre is in general. But that does seem to be the case. It seems to be very, very popular. Come on, we only have a couple more articles. Next we have the Oriental Exorcist, China Joy 2019 off-screen gameplay. I don't think you can use the word Oriental anymore to describe anything without somebody on YouTube or some on the internet complaining. So, yeah, this actually looks like an interesting Chinese-centric beat-'em-up game. So yeah, there might be something to this. I hope it actually can make it to the West. But probably gonna need to change your name. Next we have Apocalypse, China Droid 2019 our Steam gameplay. Let's see what Apocalypse looks like. Most of these China Droid games definitely not showing a lot of like details. This looks like Apocalypse might be a highly visual game, but also a pretty dark looking game. So it's kind of hard for them to get any screenshots off of it. Yeah, this really looks like a AAA game. Although, if this was going to come to the West, I wouldn't be surprised if they changed the face models immediately and made what looks like an obviously Chinese character turn into just a standard white dude character from the United States or Europe. Yeah, this really looks a lot like a Uncharted style game, and it looks pretty. Or it's a Tomb Raider game style game. It looks a lot like Tomb Raider 2, I guess. Although I can't really complain much about a Tomb Raider ripoff when we really need more Tomb Raider ripoffs. They don't make enough Tomb Raider games to only be one company that makes something that is an Indiana Jones ripoff. Next we have a game on Steam called Fighting Frenzy Swole Simulator. This is obviously a low effort troll game, and nobody should spend any money on it. English early access for $1.99, English only, and a third party EULA. Then we have TechRaptor has an article here. Coverage Club Between the Stars blast off into fun, which this is just a hype article for a space game called Between the Stars. They don't have a review thing. I will say TechRaptor has changed, I think, their comment policy. So either they've changed this image or they've changed their policy in total. And I suppose it's of small mention to say it looks like after the most recent tragedies there's a concerted effort. I don't know if it's particularly a legitimate effort or if this is just we had a target we wanted to get rid of in the form of 8chan, so we're going to attack 8chan and blame them for the most recent tragedies. So it looks like 8chan may be done for better or for worse. One less forum in which people can freely communicate, which is not a good thing in the long run. We are here at the Humble Bundle at this point. Let's see if there's a new Humble Bundle. Nope. No new Humble Bundle. And I've covered all the news, so now I'm going to go back to my Twitter feed. I will say 2K has decided to retweet many people from WWE who are posting on WWE 2K. And so if you're following 2K on Twitter today, you're gonna get a ridiculous amount of basically spam for WWE promotion of the newest WWE video game, which is not really what I'd want to see. Like, I'm fine if they retweeted one person, but when you're retweeting 4 or 5 people and that's showing up in your feed and that's overtaking your feed, that's too much. Let's see, so just scrolling down my Twitter feed to see if there's any new news worth mentioning. We have a job listing. We can talk about that Monday. Or is today Monday? Yeah, today's Monday. We can talk about that on Wednesday. Remember the pack opening, 150 plus packs, hopefully. I'm thinking we're going to try for that. That will be happening tomorrow. So definitely by Wednesday I will say, oh yeah, I didn't get anything special done except for the pack opening video. So that just leaves us with, there's an article here from Gamasutra. Layoffs at Nexon America as 2 California-based offices are closed. So more shutdowns, more layoffs, no surprise there. And that is kind of it. Yeah, that is it for news. I will also have to do the Tavern Brawl. I'm just gonna have to bang my head against that until it gets done. Anyways, that's it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.